Well, be sure to bring up politics at Thanksgiving dinner. It's going to save you money on Christmas gifts. Follow me for more holiday tips. As we get ready for Thanksgiving and the end of the liturgical year, we know that the readings are often about the final judgment of how we have to come and render an account of our lives before God. Every one of us will have to stand before God and render an account of our lives and what we did with the time and talent and treasure that God has given to us. So today it's called the parable of the talents. And a parable is a story where Jesus uses an earthly image to teach a heavenly truth, a heavenly reality. And we have the story of a master who's certainly a multimillionaire. He's going on a journey. Perhaps he's leaving Jerusalem to go to Rome for 10 or 20 years, or Athens or Alexandria in Egypt. He's going to be gone for a long time. So he doesn't take his money with him, but he chooses 3 servants called 3 stewards and entrusts each of them with different amounts of money. One he gives 5 talents, another 2 talents, and the third 1 talent. This is a huge amount of money. Talent was a measurement, usually of silver, 100 pounds of silver, or 6,000 denarius. A denarius was a day's wage, a little silver coin. So 6,000 denarius would equal 1 talent. That'd be like working for 15 years to then save 1 talent or 1 measurement. And so the one fellow gets these 6,000 coins. The other one gets 2 talents, which is 12,000 coins. The other one gets 5 talents, which is 30,000 coins. So again, this is a huge amount of money. Everybody's given this money according to their ability. Not everybody gets the same amount. The owner obviously knows that some, have different talents or different abilities, and so he distributes it differently. And so he goes away, it says, for a long time. We don't know if he was gone for 10 years or 20 years, but notice it says the man who was given 5 talents, or the 30,000 pieces of silver, immediately, that's an important word, immediately, he begins to go to work. He is industrious, he's hardworking, and over time, he doubles the money. Maybe he bought a bakery and invested and over time, doubled the money. Or perhaps he bought a fish market, or maybe the other fellow bought a vineyard, and he's able to accumulate and double the money over these 10 or 20 years. But the third fellow who received 1 talent, again, it's still a huge amount of money, 6,000 pieces of silver, dug a hole in the ground and buried it. It says, after a long time, the master returned. This is referring to the second coming of Christ. It could also refer to the moment of our own death, because we know Christ will come again, either at the end of time, or he'll come again at the end of each one of our lives. And we have to render an account of our life to God. He calls them in one by one. The one who doubled from 5 to 10 talents, the master says, well done, good and faithful servant. You were faithful in small matters. I'll now give you great responsibilities. Come, share your master's joy. It says, referring to eternal life, eternal happiness. That's what heaven is, everlasting joy, eternal life, everlasting happiness. And so that's what we want to hear when we die. We want God to say to us, God willing, well done, good and faithful servant. Whether you be a mom, a dad, a priest, a nun, a doctor, a lawyer, a teacher, student, well done, we hope God says to us. You've been a good and faithful servant. And the second fellow comes forth. He also doubles the money. He uses the talents well, multiplies them. And again, the master says, come, share your master's joy. Well done. You've been good and faithful. Well, the third person also has to render an account. And notice he has a distorted view of the master. He says, I know you are a demanding person, harvesting where you do not plant, gathering where you do not scatter. So out of fear, so notice The element here is fear. He was unwilling to take a risk. He was unwilling to be bold or industrious or hardworking. In fact, the owner will call him a wicked, lazy servant. So really the fault of this third fellow was that he was filled with fear, which really paralyzed him, and he was lazy. He was given into sloth or laziness. So he just dug a hole in the ground and buried this money. And the owner says, you should have even just taken it to the bank, and I could have had interest by the time I returned. Now take this talent and give it to the one who has 10. Imagine that. And that's one of the shocking things about this parable. For everyone who has, more will be given, and he will grow rich. And from the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away. Spiritually, it's referring to God's grace. The more God gives you grace, the more you respond to that, the more grace you get. Maybe you get the grace every day to pray 3 Hail Marys. Well, if you do that, if you correspond to that, well, then you'll be given the grace to say the rosary every day. If you correspond with that, maybe God will give you the grace to go to daily mass. Notice that to whom something's been given, if we respond to that smaller grace, then God gives us greater graces. Another example is love. If a person is a very loving person, that love will continue to increase. And the more you give love, the more love you receive back in return. But it says, if you have no love in your heart, well, then you won't be giving love towards others, and so you won't be getting love back. Or whether it be graces, love. Same thing with forgiveness. The more forgiving you are to others, the more God will forgive you. The more merciful you are towards others, the more God will bestow his mercy upon you. So that's what it's referring to. It's referring to the spiritual. To whom much has been given, much will be expected. And if we correspond in little things, God will give us much greater graces, and he'll increase our love and increase our capacity to love. So we can really summarize it by asking, well, how are we doing with the time and talent and treasure that God gives us? How do we spend our time? How do we spend and use our talents? How do we use our treasure? Do we use it to help others and make the world a better place? Do we use our time by coming to Mass and serving? How to use your talents? Maybe your talent is teaching. Maybe it's hospitality. Maybe it's serving the poor. Perhaps it's in the choir. Perhaps it's evangelization. So how do we use our time, our talent, and our treasure? Because all of us will have to render an account of our lives before God. As one saying says, that what we are is God's gift to us. What we become is our gift to God.